welcome back to Beyond the Screen, the Family Connection podcast, where we help families create moments that stick beyond the screen. I'm your host, Dr. Samantha Hayes, educator, parent, and founder of Beyond the Screen Families. And you might be noticing if you watched last week's podcast that I'm in the same clothes with the same hair, and goodness gracious, does she do anything else? I'm here to tell you I do. It's just more convenient for me right now at this holiday crunch time to record two episodes back to back in lieu of separating them out. So you get me looking like I just keep wearing the same things over and over again. If you've ever found yourself wondering, is this too much screen time? I want you to stop and raise your hand for me. I mean, I've been there, right? I've been there. And we just had a discussion about screen time during the holidays and a simple method that you can use, plan, predict, and then replace. But we're going to dive in a little bit more to screens and 5 signs that your child needs a screen break. So if you're like, is this too much screen time? Or why does turning off the tablet feel like setting off a bomb? Explosion, temper tantrums, the works seem to come out. You're not alone. And just like last week, I want you to hear me loud and clear. You are not failing. You're not failing. There's no shame. There's no guilt. There's none of that happening here. Today's episode is not about shaming or eliminating screens entirely, because I'm not an advocate of zero screens. I'm an advocate of screen minimalism and finding the balance that works for you and your family. Screens serve a real purpose in modern family life. Instead, we're talking about awareness, learning to notice when your child's body and brain might be asking for a break. And if you listened to last week's episode, one tip for me when I look at them and I'm like, they need a screen break. Even though we might be watching a movie, or maybe we watched a movie and they convinced me to watch that second really short one. There's a lot of short holiday movies, and so we might do two back to back. But in the middle of the second one, I notice a screen break is needed. Because here's the thing, a screen break is not punishment. It's a regulation reset. And today, we're going to walk through the 5 signs your child might need a screen break, why those signs show up, and most importantly, what to do instead. So you're not just taking something away without offering support. So let's dive in. Before we talk about signs, we need to talk about why screens impact kids the way they do. Screens are not neutral. I think sometimes we think that. We are doing all of these things and we're like, screens are a neutral thing. Like, let's just sit the kids on the screen, but they're not. They're designed to stimulate fast visuals, quick rewards, constant novelty. And then we add the whole fact of modern day screens and modern day life with the content being personalized. It's even harder for kids to disengage. It's not like when I grew up and you watched whatever was on the screen. No. Instead, our kids have constant access to personalization, being able to watch what they want, when they want, how they want, right? And then you layer on top of that all of the fast, the quick, the rewards. It's constant. It's not neutral. It's a stimulation. That's why we see different behavior in kids who watch shows that are much older, right? They're not as fast. They're not quick rewards. Screens were built a little differently back then. This doesn't mean, though, that screens are bad. It means they're powerful. And so understanding and recognizing that and for what it is important. And let's be honest, kids' nervous systems, especially young ones, are still learning how to regulate stimulation, transitions, and emotional shifts. So when your child melts down after screen time, it's not defiance. It's often nervous system overload. When a child says, I'm bored 5 minutes after turning the screen off, that's not entitlement. It's executive function fatigue. We don't necessarily need stricter rules. We need better signals. So let's dive into what those signals actually look like and then what you can do instead. The first one is one that most parents recognize immediately. And I hear about it all the time. Your child, you turn off the screen and your child has big emotions, explosions, temper tantrums, crying, whining. The emotions are under a magnifying glass. And as the parent, you're like, oh, I'm just going to turn the screen back on because they're crying, they're yelling, they're bargaining for me to turn it back on. They're shutting down. Just one more minute turns into a full spiral. This happens because screens elevate the dopamine levels, and when the screen ends abruptly, the nervous system experiences a sudden drop. There's the science behind what's happening behind all of those emotions. Combine that with a fast transition, because that's usually what happens. It's time to turn off screens, click, and it feels overwhelming, especially to kids who do not have a regulated nervous system. So, what do we do instead of just powering through or giving back in and saying, let's turn the TV back on again? First, add a transition buffer, give a warning, use a timer, narrate what's coming next. What does that look like for me? When this episode is over, we're turning the screens off. When this movie is over, we're turning the screens off. Maybe your kid is on an iPad. We don't have one of those for our kids, but if your kid is on an iPad, you have 5 more minutes with a visual timer. Let's set the timer. Maybe it's just, like an actual visual timer so they can see and plan for that. Second, you pair the screen off with a movement. So transition, movement. Ask your child to help you carry something heavy. Do wall push-ups, walk outside together. Movement helps regulate the nervous system faster than words ever will. So it helps your child shift out of that dopamine hitting programming into a more calm and regulated state. And third, offer connection before correction. You don't need to lecture. You just need to anchor in the moment, right? Anchor in the moment. Screens are going off after this episode. And then we're going to go outside and ride our bikes. Or I want you to create an obstacle course, right? Get kids up and moving and anchor in that connection moment with your child. Okay, sign number 2. That was sign number 1. Sign number 2 is trouble playing after screens. The second sign is when kids struggle to play independently after screens. And this happens a lot. They wander. They complain they're bored. They don't know how to start. This happens because screens remove the need for imagination. Everything is done for them. Think about it. Character, plots, visuals, decisions, all created for them. When the screens turn off, Their brain has to suddenly generate ideas again, and that is tiring. It's tiring for your brain to work. So instead of saying, go play, like screens are off, okay, go play, try offering a starting point. Have a visible menu of options. Keep open-ended materials accessible. Offer a choice and not a command. Like, I can sit with you for 2 minutes to get started, or you can choose blocks or drawing. You're scaffolding, not rescuing when you do that. Another great option here is any of our boxes because they don't have specific rules and guidelines. It's a curiosity prompt, something to just get their brain going, right? And then all of the materials are there. So instead of go play, go grab a prompt from the Boredom Buster box or the Play box. Or if the Boredom Buster box is no longer available when you're listening to it, the Wonder box, and get started, right? Sign number 3. The third sign is emotional volatility. And this one is when I see more parents just turn the screen back on. Your child becomes snappy. They're short-tempered. They're easily frustrated. They're whining. They're crying easily. This is really often overstimulation. It's not misbehavior. Overstimulated kids have more emotional outbursts. After screens, kids may need less input. Think about the shows, boom, 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 rapidly firing at their brain. They might need less input next. So instead of filling the time with activities, think regulation. Lower lights, turning on calming music, offering repetitive, predictable tasks like sorting, building, folding, drawing. We don't need to entertain their brain. We just need to help calm and reset their bodies. The fourth sign is when kids stop choosing activities they once enjoyed. They don't want to build, draw, play outside. They only want screens. And I see this a lot. The more screen time a child has, the less they enjoy the real life activities that they once did. This happens because screens offer mastery without effort. Real world activities take patience, problem solving, and persistence. So the fix is not forcing the activity back in. It's lowering the barrier to entry. Maybe you join them at first. Maybe you just keep the activity short. I would love if you could focus on the process and not the product. So often in life, we focus on the product, that end result, and being like, oh, look what I made. But instead, start focusing on the process. Praise the effort that goes in. Because then when kids fail, they've learned about how effort creates something amazing instead of focusing on that end product. Connection reignites curiosity. It truly does. If you don't believe me, I really want you to give that a try. Connection reignites curiosity. Okay, and the fifth one is when screens are the only way your child knows how to calm down. When I am out in the world at events and everything, I talk with a lot of parents about this, and they say, my child only calms down when they have screens. If screens are the only regulation strategy available, kids will cling to it. It's a natural thing for them to want to cling to the only thing that's been a regulation strategy. So, child throws temper tantrum, they get screens. That's what we've taught them is how they regulate and calm down. But remember, screens aren't neutral, right? It's a stimulus. The solution isn't necessarily removing screens, it's teaching regulation skills outside of meltdown moments. So maybe you have a calm down toolkit and you practice when everyone's regulated. Maybe there's a tent or a location or just like a stuffy, like you just want to hold a stuffy. It's helping your kids understand how to regulate and that regulation is not the screen. And you practice those things so that then when they get to a moment where they need it, you don't hand the screen over. You use all of those things you practiced in the other moments. So those things might be breathing, movement, quiet play, sensory tools. Those are such a good thing. These are skills, they're not instincts. Our children just don't know how to regulate. And so they need us to help them with it. Start small. One intentional break per day. Narrate the why, not the rule. Replace first, reduce second, and expect resistance. The first 3 to 7 days are the worst days when you start to reduce screens. But if you can, start being explicit with your children, letting them know why, offering high quality replacement activities because kids just don't know, right? Especially if we have helped them understand that regulation comes with screens. They're going to resist at first. That's natural. They don't know anything else. And so we can help them with that. Help them take the breaks that they need. Resistance doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's new. It's uncomfortable. And so that's why it's happening. Before we wrap up, here's a reflection for you. Which of these 5 signs shows up most often in your home? And what would a supportive screen break look like this week? For me personally, there have been days where we have had probably more TV time than I would generally like to have, but for whatever reason, it's happened. And the emotional piece is what happens. So that's when I really focus in on with my kids. I'm also super specific and explicit with my children, letting them know why we don't have a lot of screens, what it's doing to your brain. And I'm just honest with them, right? So they fully understand it. Your kids can appreciate when you share those things. They might resist if they've had a lot of screen time. They might resist at first, trust me, but eventually they'll get on board. And if you're thinking, I get the idea, but I need help with replacements. That's exactly what our essentials pack is. Our essentials pack is simple replacement activities that you can do, that you can hand over to your child. You don't have to go gather a whole bunch of supplies. It's purely, you get activities sent to you, activities, ideas, connection moments sent to you every single week so that you don't have to think through those components. It's filled with those ready-to-go screen-free activities that meet kids where they are: curious, restless, creative, and needing connection. No prep, no Pinterest overwhelm, just simple ways to replace screens with moments that actually stick. You can find that on our website at beyondthescreenfamilies.com. We also have activity packs and boxes. The boxes are great if you want everything to just kind of be setting out as an invitation, because one of your replacement things is to be like, go try this thing from the prompt from the play box, for example, meant to just sit out so your kids can grab it whenever they'd like. Thank you for being here, for caring so deeply about your children, and for choosing balance over perfection. Until next time, keep creating moments that stick beyond the screen. Bye, friends.